Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 kill team video. Today I'm going over another tactical guide, how to not get shot. Because this video is requested by my patrons as part of my monthly requested video content. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of the video. Did it help? Did I miss anything or did I cover everything? Just like to know, be interested. And I've also got a Discord if you want to check it down in the episode description below for free, as well as a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But yeah, today I'm going over my second guide as my second requested monthly kill team content by my patrons, and it's how to not get shot, because I've done how to set up terrain boards last month, and this month is how to not get shot, because, you know, hear a lot of guides about how to get shots, popping off angles. And today, you know, after my patrons requested it, I had a thought, and I thought it would be quite difficult to go through. But it's something I use in all my games, and I've seen actually a lot of players miss how to do it, even though it seems quite simple. So I've tried to condense it and cover the basics, but I'll just go into the video now where I'll demonstrate like basically my 4 core principles for how to not get shot, and hopefully it'll help you in your own games. So without further ado, it's time to get into the video and the examples I have on offer for you. So as I've covered in the intro, I'm now going to go over some examples for how to basically not get shot. So here we have light cover, heavy terrain, and then you have a commando slasher boy with a conceal order, and then you have a legionary heavy gunner with an engage order. So, you know, covering the basics of not getting shot, obviously the first one is being concealed behind light cover. So as long as you're within black of light cover while concealed, you cannot be shot in this position. The only way this can be negated, and this is the biggest way to negate someone with a conceal order, is getting within white of them. So not only do you negate their cover, but you negate their conceal order, so now you can shoot at them. But in that situation, being concealed keeps you safe against someone engaged. Because if you're both engaged, then you just get the benefits of cover. But this way, it's the simplest and most common way to not get shot. So for the next example, we've got the heavy gunner on a vantage point against someone who is now behind light cover. So the issue is vantage points, when you're shooting at someone while you're too white or higher, or white or higher, you can negate their conceal order. So you get treated as engaged, so you'll be in cover, but now you're getting shot. And the way to negate this is, if you're trying to not get shot by someone on a vantage point, is the simplest way, apart from this, is to be behind heavy cover. So obviously this is heavily board dependent, but this is another way to stay safe from being shot at with a conceal order, because now you are within black of heavy terrain, and for the rules of vantage points, they can only negate a conceal order if you're behind light cover. This is another way to stop getting shot, and it's the best way to negate a vantage point, as long as you have ways to get around it. Say like you have the movement to move and then shoot, or move and charge, some way to get around them and get shot, get your way to counter fire without getting shot. And that's the second way. So, you know, we've covered being concealed and then now being concealed by heavy cover. But there is another way to negate while being behind light cover. So in this scenario here, you're still behind light cover as the commando, and that heavy gunner is still on a vantage point. But there's still a way to be safe, because there's heavy terrain in the way. So if you don't remember, heavy terrain has the obscuring trait. So because cover lines are 3D, as long as the cover lines cross this heavy piece of terrain, you'll still be safe, because you'll be, as long as you're more than white from the heavy terrain, you're obscured. So as you can see, the cover lines will cross because they're coming like at this angle. So you're still concealed, so you're safe from being shot at anyone else unless they're coming from behind. But the other thing is, now this vantage point is pretty much useless in terms of negating your conceal, because now you have the ability to go, I am behind light cover, but because I am more than white away from this heavy piece of terrain, I'm obscured. So then you can go like next turning point and then move around. That's another way. But with this trick, you can also be engaged while negating being shot at. So let me show you how. So once again, it's pretty simple. It's the same logic as the previous example, although this time, now this is something you should actually be more aware of using. So using heavy terrain to obscure the shot while you have an engage order. While the previous example made sure how to keep yourself safe while concealed, using the obscuring rule from heavy terrain is a great way to stay engaged while not being able to be shot back at. So you have the problem where you can't shoot at someone shooting at you, but in this situation, the cover lines remain the same. It's still crossing the heavy cover, and you are more than one white away. So you're obscured. So if you had the gun, let's say this was the Dakar boy, I couldn't shoot at the guy on the vantage point because I'd be obscured. He'd be obscured from my shot. But then, well, I mean, not ignoring the FAQ. Assume ignoring the FAQ, because the way this works as well is if we're on the ground level, we can both see each other, but from this position, because the cover lines would cross the heavy terrain, we can't shoot at each other. So if he's moved up there, moved and dashed, and then tried, you can't get a shot even though I'm engaged. Now, the only problem with using the obscured trait to your advantage is you have to keep in mind the angles you can be shot at. So obviously, this is nice and safe, but then you have the problem of if the gunner has the movement to get there, they now obscure, well, they bypass the heavy terrain entirely, so it's a free shot. And obviously someone shooting from another direction could get a shot on you as well. So there is a lot of risk when trying to abuse the obscuring trait while engaged, even while you're concealed, but more so while you're engaged. But what's really useful is, like, let's say you're deployed, this is your drop zone. You can hide while engaged because obviously they can't see you, but then you can edge out a bit. It's just you have to be more aware of your firing lanes. And the problem with this, when an opponent has a lot of operatives and the board does have more fire lanes, you have to be quite careful because you won't be able to foresee every angle until the shot happens. And I mean, like, if the opponent moves in to get the angle and shoots you. But it's really good to use this while you have lots of engaged operatives, especially during turning point 1, when you want to do stuff like, oh, I don't want to take change order, or I want to have more than one operative instead of needing to switch one. I have a few operatives with engage orders that I can now keep safe, and then if my opponent makes a mistake or I see I can get shot, I can now move out and attack without having to change my order. So there's a lot of scenarios with this. I think the last one, using obscuring to your advantage, it's very risky, but with lots of rewards as well. And it's only really risky in terms of if your opponent has ways to ignore or negate the obscuring trait, or if they have the mobility to get around, to get angles on you. So mainly APL free teams or teams that can move and dash and then shoot in some kind of order, or they have fly. But if they don't, using this is a great way to basically get shots while, as I said, not having to rely on conceal. And those are the main ways not to get shot. Obviously, if you have super conceal, which is conceal that cannot be trumped unless they're within white when they shoot you, kind of don't have to worry too much because you can just get concealed anyway. But another trick I like to use is you have to remember not all terrain is flat walls. So a good example is the Munitorium container. As you can see, that's not flat. That's like got grooves in it, as well as the Octarius terrain. It's got grooves in it as well. So if you wanted to keep really safe, you can do stuff. It's easier if you have like bigger bases claim cover better. But what you can do is if your base is able to tag in there, you are now very, very safe. Obviously, if your opponent gets within white of you, they can shoot you. But for this example, let's say they move and dash out there, you're quite visible, but you're always within black of this terrain piece. If someone wants to get a shot on you while you've tucked your base in under the terrain, they effectively have to get to here or even here. So if you know your opponent can't get there, if you can tuck your base into underneath the terrain, especially if it's heavy, because a lot of heavy terrain is very uneven, you can tuck in your base to make sure you're super protected while you're concealed. And this is probably one of the best ways to do it, because sometimes I see, like, obviously you go, oh, I'll just be within black. But the difference is being within black there, someone just has to go here, to get a shot on you because the cover lines don't cross, even though you're within black of terrain. But if you've pushed yourself snug up, they now have to go to here, which a lot of teams can't do, sometimes even in 2 turns. And it's not just a container that can do it. Octaris is very good at doing it as well because it has like an indentation. The only issue is they get above you. And another example on the Octaris terrain is the tower, because once again, it's easier for a smaller base, but because of that gap, you can go there and you're tucked in a bit, or there. And the other spot you'd actually use this quite a lot on is vantage points, because even though you can't see it quite well from here, always you want to be flush up to the wall on vantage points where the light cover is, just to have that similar effect. So the only way someone can negate your conceal order there is if they're higher than you or shooting from behind or on the same level here where there's no cover. But that's pretty much it, my core principles on how to not to get shot. It's pretty simple in a way. As I said, it's all about knowing how to measure your ranges. You have to, like, the biggest thing you have to keep in mind is your opponent's mobility as well as ways to negate conceal. Obviously, at the moment, the only team that properly negates conceals from afar is the veteran guardsman spotter, who can just switch anyone for 1 activation from their conceal order to treat as engaged. But then you have stuff like pathfinders, who can switch you from conceal to engaged. But those kind of abilities generally only work if you're not behind heavy. Then you also have like the Corsair Voids Guard bird that can do it on a dice roll. But generally, a lot of abilities, if you want to be safe, you want to be behind heavy cover, because heavy cover usually keeps you really safe as a concealed operative. And yeah, generally always use obscuring if you can. Once again, there's only a few operatives that ignore obscuring. Basically, it's only the pathfinders as a whole when they get 4 marker lights on you. Their transference in spectral pathfinder, that one just flat out ignores obscuring. And then incursors on the Phobos strike team, instead of being 2 white or 1 white away, you have to be 2 white away to be obscured. So you have to be much further, but it still doesn't negate it. It means it's harder to claim obscuring. But claiming obscuring is a really key feature. And like, especially when you can try and, as I said, play around vantage points, because a good board should have heavy terrain in at least partially blocking where a vantage point crosses. So you go like this side safe, and then you have like, so you have like the light wall here, but if you move here, you're safe because you're obscured. Otherwise, you know, if you move closer to the wall, you're still concealed, but now you're getting shot. But those are the pretty much basic core principles. I've tried to keep it short and sweet. There's nothing really much to add. All it comes down to is basically practice and just learning the tricks of the team you're playing against. As I said, you know, you need to factor in if they have ways to negate obscuring and or concealing. And the biggest thing you have to keep in mind is their mobility. Not just if they have fly, because, you know, if they had fly, they could go, I'm flying to here and shooting you. Or if they had climbing gear, so a way to negate, like make terrain easier to climb and move over. But the biggest thing, especially that I see a lot of people not really doing, is just moving and dashing or moving into a position where you're within 1 white of an enemy operative and just shooting them. That is actually the best way to negate conceal, and something we'll see a lot in Into the Dark. But it's the best way to negate a conceal order, but it's also the hardest thing you kind of need to work around as the defender. But you can also play this to your advantage. It's more complex counterplay, but you can put your operatives in such a way where you go, okay, I'm safe from the vantage point, but if I leave them just a bit that far out, my opponent can get a shot if they move and dash here, but now they're in the open. So you can kind of go, okay, if you move and dash and get me, yeah, sure, you can fight or shoot me, but you'll be in the open. So it's a very deep subject, but hopefully you can remember these 4 core principles. So it's being concealed behind light cover, being concealed behind heavy cover, hiding behind obscuring terrain, and then the extra point is tucking yourself into terrain to make sure you're harder to negate your conceal unless they just get within white of you. So it's like mainly on heavy terrain, but a lot of GW terrain isn't uniform, so you can tuck your base underneath to make yourself super safe. But hopefully this all made sense to you. It was interesting to kind of figure this out, how to do this at first, because it's like you know, a lot of strategies are like how to get the optimal shot, how to charge well, how to not get shot is quite confusing, but then I realized it's something I do every time in all my games, and it's actually something I see a lot of people not do well. But that's pretty much it for today. I'd like to thank my patrons first for suggesting this video. This is one of my monthly Patreon requests. The last one was how to do terrain, and this one is how to not get shot. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of this like another tactic video. Did it help? Did you find it useful? Or if there's anything else I've missed that you feel is worth adding, let me know. I'd love to, you know, make more people aware, because not getting shot is actually quite difficult and a really important skill to learn for Kill Team. And yeah, if you want, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below for free, as well as a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. So I'll just quickly thank my patrons. So for my Adepts of the Crit, I have Samariu, Sam, Tarun, Kenzie, John Thomas, Dave, Average Joe 27 and Adzik. And then for my Veterans of the Crit, I have Sam, Joe and Confucius. So thank you so much again, guys. It really means a lot helping to support the channel. You know, I've got this new camera, thanks to all of you guys. And yeah, you know, this video is brought to you by the patrons. So I hope everyone enjoyed it, especially the patrons. But that's pretty much it for me now. I have so many videos and stuff I need to record. I've painted so much. I'm very impressed with what I've done. Well, you guys will see soon. But that's pretty much it. I will be back soon. So until next time, no matter what angle you're getting shot at, remember, you can always roll a crit.